I'm Joe Lample. When I created Growing a Greener World, I had one goal: to tell stories of everyday people, innovators, entrepreneurs, forward-thinking leaders who are all, in ways both big and small, dedicated to organic gardening and farming, lightening our footprint, conserving vital resources, protecting natural habitats, making a tangible difference for us all. They're real, they're passionate, they're all around us. They're the game changers who are literally growing a greener world and inspiring the rest of us to do the same. Growing a greener world, it's more than a movement, it's our mission. By the end of World War I, the term victory garden was widely used to describe vegetable plots growing all across America as a way of addressing potential food scarcity problems at home and abroad. The federal government and private entities promoted gardening as a civic virtue and patriotic way toward self-sufficiency during times of war and conflict. These gardens also served as a morale booster for troops and citizens alike. Dr. Rose Haden Smith is a practicing U.S. historian and a nationally recognized expert on victory gardens and wartime food policies.
Victory gardens actually began in World War I, and initially they were called Liberty Gardens. It was a movement that combined power of citizens with the federal government to promote the idea of gardening nationally in schools, home, communities, and workplaces. There were multiple purposes to the program. One purpose was to secure the national food supply. There were great concerns about overproduction and underproduction in agriculture, and the federal government actually wanted to encourage the local production and consumption of food products, particularly fruits and vegetables, to reduce the food mile so that trains could be used to ship troops and materiel instead of food. A second goal was also the idea of increasing production and food conservation efforts so that we could export more foodstuff to our allies in Europe. The program was based on models that had been earlier developed in the United Kingdom and in Canada, but the United States program proved particularly vibrant. Initially, the program was called a Liberty Garden Program, but very quickly the federal government realized that gardening as a means of unifying a very diverse population that included, perhaps 20% immigrants was really needed, and that it really should be called a victory garden because ultimately the program was needed to assure Allied victory in World War I and World War II. Within 10 days of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the United States Department of Agriculture convened a national war garden defense conference in Washington, D.C. Several hundred people gathered to organize the World War II Victory Garden Program, which became one of the most iconic wartime mobilization efforts in either war. The purpose was different in World War II. The American food system was secure. It was really more about gardening for unity and a service to the nation, and also about improving an American health and lifestyle and reconnecting Americans to the land. But the Plant for Freedom and Plant to Prosper Victory Garden Program of World War II was really essential to American health, and it encouraged an increased consumption of fruits and vegetables. In World War I and World War II, we held large national drafts, and drafts become a census of male health, and by extrapolation, a census of national health. And the drafts indicated that American dietary practices were poor, and the Victory Garden Program of World War II helped increase American consumption of healthful fruits and vegetables. Today's Victory Garden campaign represents a convergence of a number of concerns and threads in American cultural and civic life. Concern about the environment, concern about childhood obesity and healthy lifestyle and local foods and civic engagement. And the modern Victory Garden movement is represented not only in initiatives like the United States Department of Agriculture's People's Garden Initiative, but in the fact that there is a garden at the White House on the South Lawn where millions of people walk by every year and can see a home garden in action. And this is significant that home gardeners joined the ranks of active gardeners in America at the rate of 4 million in 2009, I think speaks to the interest and the sort of gardening ethos that's infusing American culture today.
Just as the government was behind the original Victory Gardens, today they're putting a new twist on that successful campaign. The People's Garden is the latest way for USDA offices worldwide to lead by example by promoting green gardening concepts that anyone can implement in their own backyard or balcony. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack wasted no time after his appointment by President Obama to implementing this inspiring program.
Well, we came into office in 2009 on the 200th anniversary of President Lincoln's birth. And we talked about what could we do to commemorate that important event in USDA history, because it was President Lincoln who established the People's Department, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so we decided that maybe a People's Garden would be a good way of commemorating the President's birthday. So we decided to come out here, jackhammer up a little asphalt, and begin a process of creating a 6,000 square foot area, planting about 1,900 square feet of that in raised beds, and producing an organic garden. It's been a great experience. We decided, you know, this is such fun. Let's encourage all of our USDA family to engage in this. And so now we have 525 People's Gardens. Every state of the union has a People's Garden. Several territories of the United States, several foreign countries, embassies have also embraced this notion, not only focusing on fresh foods and more nutritious eating, but also physical activity. We're particularly excited about the fact that a number of People's Gardens are in schools. So children are getting outdoors, they're getting physically active, they're learning a little bit about nature and how difficult it is to raise food.
Mr. Secretary, when you took office in early 2009, it wasn't like you didn't have a whole lot on your plate. You know, there's a bit of a learning curve, I would think, and yet one of the first things you did was establish the People's Garden.
It's an opportunity for us to reconnect people with their food supply. I think we in this country take our farmers and our ranchers and our growers for granted. And so this was an opportunity to showcase what can be grown, what can be done with a small area, and encourage folks to consider maybe doing it themselves. And when they do, they learn about the risk associated with trying to grow something, whether it's the weather, it's pests, it's animals, and maybe we have a closer connection to our food supply, and maybe, just maybe, we have a greater appreciation for those farmers and ranchers that produce the bulk of our food. Maybe we get our youngsters outdoors, get them physically active. You know, we talked a little bit about Victory Gardens. In World War II, it was a concerted national effort to try to contribute. It was a way in which everybody could contribute. In a sense, we have a war going on in this country against obesity. We have a third of our children obese or overweight. Healthcare costs escalating in large part because of obesity. And so we have a war. And in a sense, these gardens are a way of responding and us contributing to the effort. First Lady's got her White House garden, great example. We have our People's Gardens. We now have 525 of these, as I mentioned earlier, all over the country. And it's a community activity. People volunteer, they get their youngsters out, they get them physically active. Kids begin to see what a vegetable is, and they go, well, geez, I grew that, I ought to eat it.
The other thing was that you had so many people interested in this position of volunteering that I think the slots filled up in like 15 minutes with many people on the waiting list.
They did, and I think it's because it's a collaborative effort. It's an opportunity. There are thousands of people that walk this mall. Thousands of people walk by the USDA building. They don't even necessarily know this is the Department of Agriculture. They see this garden, they begin to make a connection. And what we hope to be able to do is expand this over time for it to be a teaching tool, not just encouraging and inspiring people to garden, but maybe teaching them a little bit more about the environment. We have a rooftop garden that we've got working. We've got pollinators. We've got beehives that are very important to production. A way of reconnecting people, re-educating people, and encouraging and exciting, and making it collaborative and making it sustainable. And as I said earlier, 60,000 pounds from these 525 gardens going to folks that might not otherwise have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. It's a great thing.
Yeah, it is a great thing. And thank you for putting this program in place.
You bet. Happy to do it.
The produce that's harvested from the People's Garden is put to very good use just down the street at DC Central Kitchen. And it's not your average soup kitchen either. They're a recognized national leader in their field. Chief Development Officer Brian McNair gives Patty a behind-the-scenes tour.
Hi, Dorothy. So over here every day we do 4,500 meals out of these 65-gallon kettles.
Wow.
We post our menu here every day, and today's menu is beef lo mein. All right. What y'all working on here? This is a lesson. This is our 80th class. Anyway, the class will get their lessons over here. The lesson in the morning there. They also go on a lot of field trips to learn what.
So like to different restaurants or?
Different restaurants, convention centers, food service organizations. They're starting their internships now. So they'll all go out for a full week so that they know what it's like in the real world. So this is Fresh Start. This is where we do all of our catering.
So what are you guys making over here?
We're making roast beef and cheese wraps.
What class did you graduate?
79.
79.
Nice.
78. This is a lesson area. It's also an area where we do lunches every day. So this is our only bank of ovens and stoves. As I mentioned over there, we do 2,600 meals out of the kettles a day for social services. Another 1,000 come out a year, which are different combinations. We call this ready to heat. So there's some small agencies that only need 25 or 50 meals. We might make a pasta over here with donated pasta, something smaller, and it'll go into pans and be cooled down so that they can reheat it. Those are agencies that have kitchens.
So as a nonprofit, you rely on a lot of donations of food.
Right. Well, we get a number of donations. About 60% of what we get to prepare our 4,500 meals a day is donated. Comes from institutions. The People's Garden's a big donor. Other local farmers are donors. Convention centers, hotels, and we do 4,500 meals a day with that. But the most important piece is that the same men and women that receive our meals every day, shelters, transitional homes, halfway houses, they have an opportunity to come here and train. We always say this is the stage. Volunteers are here every day. Men and women are here from other backgrounds that are trying to train, change their lives through a training program, and they leave here with jobs. And at the same time, they're all using the kitchen, donated product from organizations that really care, to feed the city.
In home gardens all across America, people are making bold steps to make a difference with the food we grow, not only for ourselves, but for the planet and our neighbors we share it with. In a quiet little neighborhood just outside of Chicago, you might happen upon Shauna Coronado's front yard. You'll recognize it because it's the one with the Bountiful vegetable garden. So Shauna, you're doing what a lot of people would love to do, but for whatever reason, haven't gotten around to it, and that's to have this wonderful vegetable garden right here in the front. What was the motivation for that?
All about feeding the hungry. There was a woman who lived up the neighborhood from me, and she lost her home because she didn't have food to feed her family. And that was so sad. So I really wanted to try something different to make an inspirational change, to get people out there doing and feeding their families the way everyone should be.
So that's the motivation for the garden. What about putting it right in the front?
That's an easy choice. This is the only place I had full sun, so I had to do it here.
Well, that's not unlike many people who have the only sunny spot in their front yard, but they're afraid of maybe what the neighbors think, right?
Absolutely. You know what? I just did it. I planted it to look very ornamental, so it's beautiful to look at.
I have to say, this really is a pretty vegetable garden, and I bet a lot of your neighbors don't even know this is like full-scale food production going on here.
You're saying it. It is all about keeping it attractive. And because it's so low to the ground, everyone thinks it's flowers instead of vegetables.
Yeah, now as a gardener, I see maybe some cosmetic issues going on here, and I see the wildlife, although that's cabbage moth, which tells me you're definitely not using chemicals.
I do not care about looks. I care about using no chemicals, all organic, keeping it healthy, because all of this ends up getting donated to local food pantries, remember?
Yeah.
And I want our community to be organic and healthy.
Yeah, and so plus what you're not feeding your own family, and of course you want that for them. Good plan there. Now you've got this basil growing here, ornamental, very pretty, but you're letting it go to flower, which is then to seed, which kind of makes that basil bitter. A lot of people would pluck that flower head off.
Have to save it. Must save it because the flower head is one of the most important flavorful parts. I take it all, crush it up, put it in olive oil, freeze it, and then all season long I have this really wonderful flavor additive for my foods.
A great way to extend the season well past the time that the basil is long gone. What about the lettuce? Because here we are in the middle of the summer. Most of the time people have pulled that out. It's either bolted or it's gotten too bitter. What do you do?
It does get bitter, and what I do is I pick it and then I mix it with vinegar and sugars and use it as a cut, you know, with meats.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful combination. Keeps healthy all year long, and you don't have to spend more money to invest in the garden than planting.
I've heard a lot of gardeners say they would love to have tomato plants in their front yard, but because they tend to get kind of ratty looking early on, that's the deal killer for them. But look at yours, this is so ornamental to me, and you have a lot of tomatoes on these plants.
There is a secret. It's called well-composted manure. And I love manure. I put it on every part of my vegetable garden. And better yet, all organic.
Yeah, fantastic. And on top of that, you've got the mulch to help keep the moisture in. And speaking of moisture, I don't see any irrigation heads over here. How are you watering your garden?
I have a drip irrigation system laid, but it all starts with my rainwater cistern. I have 500 gallons worth of rainwater I can use every time it rains, and I water the garden with that, all natural, no chemicals. I have a pump. It's plugged into the drip irrigation. It works really well, so I love it.
Well, it's probably a good thing I'm not your neighbor, because if I was, I'd be out here every morning with my coffee overlooking this fantastic garden.
It's
Shauna.
my modern day victory garden. I absolutely love it. I'm helping my family, and better yet, I'm helping the community because I'm giving organically to others.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and by the way, what do those neighbors say now with this garden?
They tell me never to leave.
If you want to turn your landscape into a victory garden by adding edibles, try things that look and taste good. One of my favorites for bringing a colorful pop to your garden as well as your plate, Swiss chard.
You know, a lot of people come up to me at the farmer's market saying, you know, Nathan, it's so easy to grow chard and the kids love it because of all these amazing colors, but what do you do with it? Come with me. Now, the great thing about chard, you treat it a lot like spinach because it's so easy to prepare, and that's why this morning, for breakfast, I'm making a sauteed chard roast red pepper frittata. Super easy and definitely delicious. Now, as far as roasting the red peppers, let me show you how easy this is. Just take a little red pepper, or whatever color you got. You got yellow pepper, you got red pepper. Green peppers, I don't like them quite so much. I just don't think they're so flavorful. This is something the kids can really help you with also in the kitchen, guys. You know, they love the colors, they like to help. Let them help you. They'll love you for it. And there we go. That's the simple preparation. You would put this in the oven and broil 500 degrees as hot as it'll go, okay? Now let me show you what it looks like when it's done. You want it to char just the outside to get nice and black. Not gray, that's a bit too much, just black all the way through. Check this out, okay? See how dark that is? It's so hot, in fact, that what's happening is that the moisture on the inside, just under the skin, is steaming. And you wrap it up in plastic wrap for about 5-6 minutes, and this is what happens. It's so cool and really easy to remove the skin. And after it steams, look at that, it almost wants to just stay right inside that bag. Check this out. And all you have to do is pull it off like that. You know, why would you pay $7, $8 for stuff from Italy or wherever else they come from when you can do this all by yourself right there at home? Now on to the chard portion. Really easy, simple preparation. We're gonna get a regular saute pan over, say, medium-high heat. Red onion, a little bit of garlic. We'll give it a dice with some olive oil, and that's the foundation for this chard dish. Delicious. And the onions go right in. There we go. Now, a little bit of salt and pepper at this point. And what the salt does, other than flavoring it, it actually dehydrates the onions and they'll cook down and caramelize a little bit faster. And fresh ground pepper, guys. Now with this chard, all I've done is just pulled it right off the stems. And you can have the kids help you. Just pull it into smaller pieces. With kids and chard, they're so colorful when you go outside and you pick them. Let them be involved in the whole process, from the garden right to your table. There we go. And we'll let that wilt down for just a little bit. Now it's the time for the egg preparation, for the egg portion of the frittata. All right. And Joe taught me eggshells, great for the composter. Now, as far as flavoring, there's one thing I want to add to this. I love whole grain Dijon mustard. This isn't the stuff you squirt on hot dogs, guys. This is really flavorful and has a sweet flavor to it. Amazing. Add a little bit of that, maybe a teaspoon. Salt and pepper. You got to season everything as you go. Just like this. Give this a quick whisk. And the egg portion is just about ready. All right, now that pan should be plenty hot by now. A little bit of extra virgin olive oil right on the bottom. There we go. And pour the eggs right on in there. There we go. Now you don't want the heat to be too terribly high or else the eggs get kind of a little bit crusty on the bottom. We don't want that this early in the morning. We want something nice and fluffy and delicious. So what's happening is as the eggs cook around the edge, I'm just gonna take a spatula and lift it up and allow the egg to run right underneath, just like that. Okay, there's just a little bit of liquid left in there, so now's the time to add this great chard, just like that, right along the top. We took the effort to roast this pepper, just do a quick slice right on there, and we'll add that right on top. There we are. Oh, look at that, look at those colors. Beautiful. And this goes in the oven. This will go in at 350, okay, for about 5 to 7 minutes, if that. So we just slide that right out onto your cutting board. Oh, that's beautiful. Just have a nice wedge of this for breakfast. There we go. Just cut it right along there. And serving up couldn't be easier either. So we just serve this right up. Nice gentle slice, fresh basil, and we'll just hand tear some of that. Really rustic. It's first thing in the morning, guys, right out of bed. Drizzle that right over top, and you can just smell that. It's amazing. A little bit of extra virgin olive oil right over top, and a bonus for breakfast, some freshly grated Parmesan right over top. And there you go, guys. Swiss chard. Complements so many meals, even breakfast. And if you want this recipe and all my other recipes and tips, everything, growingagreenerworld.com. We'll see you there.
Just as victory gardens around the world during World War I and II helped us all feel empowered to make a difference, today's gardens are just as important as we fight other battles like childhood obesity, hunger, and access to sufficient, healthy, nutritious vegetables. Well, once again, we're reminded of the power of a garden to unite people and communities and shape our future.
And even impact the health of our planet.
We've assembled some great links on our website to teach you more about victory gardens and the people's garden too.
You can rewatch this episode and others, as well as Chef Nathan's video recipes too.
The web address is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. I'm Joe Lampel.
And I'm Patty Moreno.
And we'll see you back here next time for more Growing a Greener World.